Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, welcome. This is British George Armistead, and you are listening to Life List, a birding podcast.
All right.
Hello.
How did I do,
great.
guys?
This is great.
You are hired.
George always
Don't
says
tell
he's
George.
irreplaceable, but it's obvious that he, George, you're not here for a while. We start finding people who can do the intros and all sorts of other stuff. But
I've been studying George Armistead. I've been really doing my research. I've gone all method.
Well, hey, before first I should say we have Ed Yong with us, and I'll introduce him in a little bit. And I am here. I'm Alvaro Jaramillo, and also Molly Brown is here. Life List,
Hey
a
there.
birding podcast. And like I said, we have a British George. And I should just roll in here with a bit of an introduction. First of all, I want to say, if you know Ed Yong's work, and you've read his books or articles and so forth, I just want to say, first of all, Ed is a birder, a legit birder. And that's one of the things we want to talk to him about. But he also is very accomplished in many other things. He early on in his career created and wrote a award-winning blog called Not Exactly Rocket Science that was published as part of the National Geographic Phenomena blog network. Ed was also a writer for a science reporter for The Atlantic for several years. It's about almost 10 years, I think, where he received a Pulitzer Prize for a series on the COVID-19 pandemic, which, that was a time in our world that we learned a lot from it, and also I would love to forget it, but it is something we definitely lived through, and we may live through again. So, reporting on something like this is obviously very important. And in 2016, Ed released a book called I Contain Multitudes, The Microbes Within Us and a Grander View of Life, which is essentially about microbes and the relationships microbes have with animals, right? And in 2022, a second book, An Immense World, How Animal Senses Reveal the Hidden Realms Around Us, was published, which explores animal perception. And I got to say, we'll talk about this. This is just an absolutely amazing book. I loved it. And the book received a Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Nonfiction, featured as Book of the Week on BBC Radio, named by Publishers Weekly as one of the top 10 books of 2022, regardless of genre. So I tell you, it's not just me who thinks this is a good book. And it was awarded the 2023 Royal Society Trivedi Science Book Prize. I also should mention that and British George originally from Malaysia and moved to the UK before moving to the United States. So kind of like myself, lived in multiple places in the world and has multiple identities.
Slowly migrated westward.
So, yeah, I kind of did a weird, it's like, I don't know what shape it is, but I migrated north and south and north again. But welcome. After
Thank you.
A long time, we've been trying to talk to you about coming on and talking to us, and not because you weren't interested, but it just never kind of came together. But I'm glad we're all here. And also, you and Molly have been hanging out and birding as far as I know this
We
last
have.
week.
Down in the Texas coast.
Yeah, which was my first time there. Your second?
My second, yeah.
It was so much fun.
it was amazing. So this was for the 50th anniversary event for the for Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours event, and they got like 30 guides down, a bunch
Wow.
of guests, 4 speakers. So yeah, just in terms of the people, got to hang out with Michael Bryan and Louisa Matis, who I adore.
Hmm.
Met Ken Kaufman, met Jennifer Ackerman, Scott Weidensold, just wonderful people. And the birding was really spectacular. Like I just love the diversity of habitats you have in a relatively constrained area. Um, on my first, so I arrived like in the afternoon, um, and then found like 4 lifers in about the same number of hours.
Yeah.
Um, there was a field full of buff-breasted sandpipers, which
Oh,
I saw
wow.
for the first
Oh,
time. They
cool.
were doing their
That,
wing displays.
yeah.
Um, which was just wonderful to see. Like I sort of wasn't expecting that. I didn't
Yeah.
know that they
Yeah.
would do the thing.
Yeah. And
Um,
I got to say, Ed's actually doing the thing, visually.
yes,
So,
right.
He
This
is
is
I
a,
doing
mean,
the
it's
thing,
really,
yeah.
I
it's
just
really
remembered
cool.
that this is an audio medium, and so none of the listeners can. You can't. You maybe hear a faint rustle as I,
Yeah, as you
but
do the
just picture me
right.
raising my hat, raising my arms.
And one of the things that when I've seen them display is sometimes they do one wing, and kind of flash, and
Right.
other times they do 2
Mm.
wings and flash forward. So it's like there's a side flash and a front flash. And I wondered, are they left wing, right wing? Is there like if you do the one wing, is the bird always doing the same wing, or do they switch? Or it's I wonder.
Hmm.
And so Michael and I were talking about this, right? Like, is there a code? Like, does one wing mean something different to 2 wings? I was
Right,
reading in like Birds of the World, there was something about like sometimes one wing might be a signal to like other migrating flock mates flying
right.
overhead. But right, like does what, because sometimes there are some cephalopods, there are like squid that will do like will do mating colors on one side of their body and
Hmm.
like keep away colors on the other side at the same time. So they'll flash like different signals on either side of their
Oh,
body.
wow.
Like, is there is there a
Yeah.
asymmetric buff-breasted sandpiper signal going on? I'm still doing the
Yeah.
thing, listeners.
You are
I
still
know.
doing
You're
the thing.
doing the
You're actually
doing the
you're
thing.
sending multiple signals.
Yeah, yeah.
I am, yeah,
And I
right.
the one thing that sort of like rings a bell, not with the sandpipers, but in a lot of warblers or New World warblers, they have these type A, type B songs, and
Right.
one of them tends to be I'm a male, I'm available, let's mate, and then the
Hmm.
other song is I'm a male, get away, other males. And
Right.
they
Yeah.
can be given in different proportions at different times a day and sometimes back to back. And I
Yeah.
think that's really interesting that they're sort of communicating 2 different things that have to do with breeding in the similar, with song.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
for us, we just sort of say, "Oh boy, these warblers are so variable." And it's like, well,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
not just randomly variable. Sometimes they're actually doing very specific things with their
Yeah.
songs, and
Yeah.
it's similar to what you're sort of contemplating with the one wing, two wing, which it'd be interesting see what it
Yeah. Very
means.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Um,
and if I don't know if you got to see the wing really close, but if you look at a specimen,
no, sadly,
the
always at a distance. But why? What does it look like close up?
well, it first of all, it really flashes really strongly, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like whiter than you would expect, but up close, it has all of this little marbling
Ah.
on towards the tip of the primaries, and then really
Huh.
white in sort of more in the central part of the wing. And the marbling is like nothing you have seen on any other shorebird pattern at all. And I
Huh.
I do think that up close, that marbling is probably a close signal to the female that says more than the far signal is the white, and then the close signal is that marbling might be saying something or it's just attractive. to
Right.
the females.
Oh,
But it's pretty neat. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
marbling is probably the best. It's not speckling. It's more like
No,
a
right. I just brought up I just Googled it. Wow, that's really cool.
yeah.
Huh.
So anyway,
But so I bring this up because we like this was to me like the perfect lifer sighting because
all right,
it's a bird I've always wanted to see, and like sometimes like you see a lifer and it's like you get a fleeting glimpse, you know it's the bird, and then it sort of disappears, and it's a tick in your list, and it's fine. But like this was the bird doing its iconic thing.
right,
So
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
it's sort of lifer behavior, which to me is sort of it's much more meaningful and important
rich,
than just like
right.
the first time. Right. And this was within like seconds, right? Like, so I got to the field, looked at the car, saw my first buff-breasted sandpiper, went way, and then like almost immediately saw like one in the distance doing the
Right.
thing, and like if I wasn't in the car, I'd probably have fallen out of my seat. It was such a wonderful little like unexpected moment.
You were strapped in, yeah. So were you there Were you there with Michael O'Brien at all?
No, I
No,
was
it was later.
later,
Okay.
but this was like on the way down to meet them. Like there was this one field where people had been seeing like, upwards of several dozen, maybe 100 buff-breasted sandpipers at one time. And I just thought I've got to stop there on my way. And sure enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that if you had this rich experience with the buff-breasted sandpiper, and you were there with the author of the Shorebirds book, would have been like just like you might as well lay the binoculars down. It's like nothing else is going to compete.
Yes, right. Just like drive straight back to the airport, like I never even checked into my hotel. Right. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's
and then
great.
I went to the High Island Sanctuary and got there at like 4:00. And I think one thing that I remembered from the last time I went to the Texas shoreline at this time of year was like often the key migration spots really just start kicking off at the end of the afternoon. Like 4:00 is often an incredible time to actually be visiting places, because you have birds that, to my understanding, are flying overnight and then through the day, and are like landing exhausted at the end of the day. And that's exactly what we had. Like, over here, once it gets past like, I don't know, 11 in the morning, it feels like things get much quieter.
Right.
And like my home spring birding experience is very much an early morning thing. And it was really cool to be in a place where like, oh no, like, the couple of hours before sunset are actually magnificent. And sometimes the best hours.
It was the same that I was thinking when I got down there too. And I factually knew it, but to experience that and actually see, because a lot of these woodlots are so small, right? They're like 20, 30 acres. And you can cover a fair bit of them pretty quickly. And then you can actually watch this just dynamic thing happening in front of you. And the birds aren't calling. I was amazed at how much it was visual over hearing them much at that point. And I've never experienced migration like that on that side. I've seen buildups on really just Lake Erie, being up in Ohio each year and watching birds pile up before they cross the lake. But this was totally different. I loved that.
Yeah. I also remember last year, like I was birding with friends who are from the area and experienced this a lot, and they were like, they were explaining that you just get these very predictable patterns of species coming in. So you'll get like, I won't get the order right, but it'll be like, oh, the vireos are here. That's great. It means that like in like half an hour, like we'll get a wave of like orioles or tanagers or like that kind of thing,
So it's sort of like you have a starting, the starter's gun goes off, in the southern part of the Gulf, and the birds shoot up, and they are going at different speeds, and or perhaps with different variables due to their size, and then they just sort of
Mhm.
come in different waves. That's really cool.
In
The
these like very neat taxonomic buckets, and that was just incredible to witness. Like we really could just see it. Like suddenly, it wasn't just like a mixed flock would come in. It would be suddenly there would be like all the grosbeaks would be in, or like suddenly there'd be like the
Mhm.
warblers would start arriving.
Yeah, no, that's neat. I actually just saw my first arrival rose-breasted grosbeak here this morning,
Nice.
and at the feeder, and I was looking around. I mean, on eBird, I was like, oh, there's been none in the county yet, like none in the area. It's like I always feel like so part of the data that I'm looking at is how broad some of these arrivals are, and also
Mhm.
partly it's my backyard. So is my backyard picking up something that is not actually widespread at this point in time? Is it like actually, a good spot to be in a sense, and which I'm trying to
Yeah, right.
convince myself that it is. because
I'm pretty
'cause
sure
there's
you're
up-
capable of manifesting that.
but I have this awful, it's not an awful thing, it's actually a wonderful thing, but I could drive 15 minutes to a well-known spot for migrants, but I stay in my yard because I want to see what's going on
Oh,
here,
yeah.
and I feel like I haven't yet gotten the release, the tension of like, okay, I'm learning, haven't been here in May yet, so it's like I'm not ready yet to like just start, going to the even better spot. It's like,
Yeah. Still
it's
establishing your baseline, yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
establishing the baseline, which and then tomorrow apparently is a really good migration night, or tonight. I mean, this could
Yeah.
be really good, so we'll see.
I
Um,
saw that.
and California, coastal California, where you are, Ed, is amazing for birding in general, but it just lacks this whole thing, the whole
Yeah.
migration, like boom, it's a shame because but then if it had that, it would have everything and bird wise and
Right. I mean,
No kidding.
yeah, like, right. Like I think I would, is this true? I was going to say, I feel like I would rather have what we have, which is just great year-round birding,
right.
than like this kind of boom and bust thing. I was on. So I live in Alameda County, which is in the East Bay, and I had 200 species by the end of January, and I'm on like 250 now at the end of April, and like that feels wonderful to me. Just being able to go out and just like see this huge diversity of stuff, even in the dead of winter.
Right.
But you're right. It's like it is. I think I need to spend more time in the East, and like the South. The Texas offers a bit of this, but just like to see the spectacle aspect of migration is something that we don't really have. Like things move in slightly more protracted waves. I mean, this is actually only my third spring migration since starting birding,
Yeah.
so I feel like I'm talking as if I know a lot about this, and I don't yet. I find it really funny, the differences between both sides of the Bay Area. So
Yeah, right.
I feel like on the East we do really well with spring migration. And then come the fall, like all of the vagrant birds are hugging the coastline.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
there'll be days when like the Bay Area group chat is just full of San Franciscans going, oh, we had like a calliope hummingbird and like 4 different vagrant warblers on my head.
Yeah.
And whereas in the East Bay, we're just like dining on scraps,
Right.
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 And cursing our neighbors across the bridge.
Yeah, no, it's a definite yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Even things as simple as the Rufous hummingbird. Like Rufous hummingbird has this really good migratory pulse in March that you will see regularly all the time in the East Bay if you're in the right places. But on the coast, you may miss it completely in certain springs, unless it's very dry. And if it's really dry, they kind of come more to the coast where it's a little moister. And
Yeah.
then, and you think, well, wow, but you're only separated by, I don't know how many kilometers, but not that much. And
Right.
yet,
Right.
here it's much more broad front kind of stuff. So, if
Yeah.
in the east.
Yeah.
I think before I became a birder, one of the most surprising things that I've learned since becoming a birder is just how stark some of these geographic barriers can be across
Mhm.
like what I would think of as like pathetically short distances.
Right.
And it's not even like migration. Like if I just like grabbed an oak titmouse from my yard and drove across the Bay Bridge and released it in San Francisco, like,
Mhm.
100 people would lose their minds and spend all day trying to find it.
Yeah.
Um, and and it's just one of my most common yard birds, and I'm just here.
Yes.
It would be like a 15-minute drive with no traffic. Um,
Right.
and yeah, that's wild to me, considering the distances that these things are covering, like on the regular.
Yeah,
True.
I think it's particularly the Western situation that those levels of really specific, um, the coastally, you don't have any white-breasted nuthatches, you don't have any
Right.
oak titmice, and yet, on the opposite, American goldfinch can be so common on the coast, and
Hmm.
it's
Right.
much less common. It's not, you know, um, it's still there in the East Bay, but it's, and to me, I was like, wow, and this is just all the plant species, the fact that many of these birds are resident rather than migrants, and also
Mhm.
the humidity level. I mean, how wet the coast is versus the interior, and um, you get east of the mountains, and so many of those changes are so gradual that you don't get
Mhm.
like that stark thing, and that's one of the kind of most awesome things about Western natural history, because the plants are doing the same thing, and not just the birds,
Right.
right? The insects
Right.
and so forth. That's like it's great. And it all boggles my mind, and now that I'm here, like I'm boggled by other things, like I'm suddenly like, what's going, why is this happening, or what? And uh, one of the things that I found really interesting here, and I don't know if you have this, Molly, where you are, because you have a lot of breeding warblers and things where you live. Like the migratory spots sometimes aren't picking up something, yet if you had a good migration night, they can all be in the breeding grounds already. Like they
Yes,
they can
absolutely.
overshoot the
Huh.
migrant spots, and it's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, we kind of had that on the Texas coast as well, because the way this event worked, there were 100 and some participants, and as Ed said, there were a ton of guides. So everyone was together in the evenings for like dinner and social and keynotes, and then we had 16 vans going out every day. So it was
Wow.
kind of working like a festival where there are all these different tracks, and we were all broken into small groups during the days. And so one of the days we went to north. We were based in Beaumont, Texas, and one of the days was going up to Piney Woods, which is like the westernmost expansion of that southeast like slash loblolly longleaf pine habitat, where exactly that was happening. We were picking up breeding birds, and there were a lot of birds singing on territory that we
Hmm.
weren't getting on the coast because
Hmm.
they'd managed to overshoot it. And
Yeah.
like for me, that was the only place I had prairie warbler. We
Mhm.
did have a couple Swainson's warblers on a good fallout day, probably before you got there,
Nice.
Ed. But then they were up on territory, and then things like brown-headed nuthatch and that kind of stuff too. But yeah,
Right.
it
The
was really
residents.
cool to see. Yeah, um, two totally different worlds from these oak-dominated woodlots on the coast that are just covered
Mhm.
in migrants of every shape and size, and cardinals and blue jays. And then getting into a lot of similar habitat, because there's a lot of hardwood habitat in there as well. And having all those established breeding birds
Yeah.
it was confusing. I feel like I still haven't wrapped my head around it. And then
Yeah.
also
Yeah,
roadrunners up there, which is
Oh,
what I
right.
really can't wrap
That's
my
right.
head around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Molly and I were talking about this. Yeah, we saw like what I think of as a ditch runner. It was like a
Yeah,
road runner on this like grassy like ditch on the side of the road, and it just looked so incongruous.
I
I'm not
can't
sure if
fathom it.
yeah, I'm not sure if Louise hadn't called out Roadrunner, I would have worked out what the bird was, even though
yeah,
it's, quote unquote unmistakable.
yeah.
Says the
Yeah,
field
that
guide.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty
The
cool.
the whole migration sort of concept is crazy. And I was at dinner the other day with my mom, and her her husband and a couple of friends they're old friends, from Chile, and they were asking me about bird migration suddenly, and I was just sort of trying to um, talk to them about it, and then they're saying, "Well, how do they know, and how do they do this?" And I'm like, "Well,
Mhm.
gosh, we kind of know little bits and pieces. We know they have to have a map. They know they have to have like a, a direction and various other things." But I said, "But butterflies are doing it, and they don't have these immense brains, and
Mhm.
green darners, dragonflies are doing it." And I said, "It's a lot of this is just coded in the genes, and
Mhm.
how those genes become the behavior is, we don't know, but they're not learning it from their parents if you're a butterfly, because that was one of the things they were like, they must learn this from their parents, right? I said, no,
Okay.
it's they don't. And it's, I think it, when you talk to people, and you would think my parents would know a lot about birds, but they actually don't. So in any case, and only in later life are they even asking me and interested in any of this. But anyway, but but they
Your parents
this
are just sitting there going, if only we had someone we could ask about
yeah,
all
right.
of these burning
All this
questions.
stuff.
Who do we know? I
Who
don't
do
think
we
we know
know?
anyone. We don't know anyone.
And when you try to explain these things to people who aren't well versed in the bird stuff, you realize yourself how amazing it all is, and you realize too how well all
Yeah.
the missing pieces. And I think you got into this in your book, An Immense World, about
Uh-huh.
magnets, and how birds and other things are figuring this out. And were you kind of like at that time, um, sort of, did you think that people would know more about how migration happens than they do? Or were you
Oh
impressed that we
man.
know so much?
I
Like, which way did it go?
wow. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think so. Okay, just for context, like I've only been a birder for 3 years, roughly, probably a little less. Um, I've been interested in animals for my entire life, like since I was very, very small. So it's basically since I remember being interested in anything, I've been all about the natural world. Um, so sometimes I forget what people know and don't know.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes like now I lead some birding walks in my local area, and one of the most um, regular sources of wonderment that I see is telling people that bird wasn't here like a month ago. That
Hmm.
bird just arrived here, and people will say, "Where did it come from?" And I think in their heads, they expect the answer to be like, "Oh, like you know, like down like maybe like from LA, right? Like not
Right.
Central or South America." And
Yeah.
I think the very concept of that blows people's minds. Like it still blows my mind. And when when I was before I was a bird, I was writing about all of this stuff in a fairly abstract way that was different from that was like out of my own lived experience. So I've written about I just in terms of migrations like Arctic terns and
Hmm.
sooty shearwaters, and putting small tracking backpacks on birds and working out their routes for the first time. I knew about bar-tailed godwits and
Mhm.
bar-headed
Right.
geese. But it's very different to, see an incredible statistic and a big number in a research paper, and quite another to actually witness the phenomenon with your own eyes.
Right.
And to, see birds streaming into a forest on a coastline, or to, try and predict based on weather and all of this other stuff, like what's going to happen the next morning. I think the combination of, I think it's made me realize how much of my love for the natural world was this very kind of bookish,
Mhm.
academic, slightly removed love, and how enriched all of that has been by actually being out in the field and accumulating field knowledge, and understanding more about the actual behavior of the birds in the flesh, and knowing a bit more about the land, the ecology, the weather, like all of the things that go into birding that isn't just birds. And then I think that, these two sides of it, the book smarts and the field smarts, really synergize with each other very beautifully. So, I
Right.
like the fact that when I'm looking at a bird, I can start thinking about, what did it take to get here? Like what sensors did it use? What did it encounter on the way? What's the evolution in this migratory route? So I can actually talk at length about one of my favorite examples of this. I just finished writing my third book, um, which is about life at different scales. So,
Hmm.
very big, very small, long-lived, short-lived. What is it like to be the size of a blue whale, or to live for millennia like a bristlecone pine, or to travel halfway around the world like many of the birds we're talking about, versus being rooted in one spot like the garden plants that I can see. It's about like the extremes of possibility in the living world. And I did a bunch of reporting trips. There were many, protagonist species that I wanted to get to know, and one of them was the bar-tailed godwit. So last year I flew out to New Zealand in February with the specific intention of meeting some researchers who study bar-tailed godwits, and to actually try and watch them take off.
Mhm.
And I did, and it was magnificent. Like they're beautiful birds. For any listeners who don't know, bar-tailed godwits make the longest continuous non-stop migration of any bird. From Alaska, where their breeding grounds are, they will fly a straight shot across the Pacific Ocean down to like Australia and New Zealand. The longest such track was recorded in 22, and it was something like 8,200 miles from
Right.
Alaska to Tasmania, flown like without water, without food, without rest, without sleep, and crucially, because they do not soar, without like any cessation of aerobic effort. Like they are just
Yeah. They
flapping
just
for like
flapping.
more than a week. And I think if you don't know any of that, then seeing bar-tailed godwits on a mud flat and watching them like fly off into the distance is like a cool thing. But I think that the knowledge of what the birds are about and what they're capable of makes the sighting even better. But actually seeing them do this makes the more academic knowledge just totally come alive. I mean, we saw, what I couldn't read from any paper or book was the fact that they make this very distinctive like kick noise. They have a very
Huh.
specific let's go call
Oh,
that they make
man.
when they're
Yeah.
just about to take off. And the Godwit researcher I was with, he was telling me, you probably won't see a departure. The winds were all wrong. The conditions are all wrong. And then
Right.
just like before sunset, everything snapped, everything changed. Like the wind shifted, and then suddenly all of these like still birds have this like intensity to them, and one of them goes kek, kek, and he goes, that's it, like it's gonna happen. And they they start preening and fluffing their feathers, and then just out of nowhere, like 7 of them take off and they circle overhead and then they just disappear into the northwest. And I
Huh.
can just see them turning into specks on the horizon. And just the knowledge that those birds will not touch land for 7 days.
Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty crazy.
it's and then I spent the next 7 days like being a tourist in New Zealand, and like every time I went to bed, like I was thinking like the godwits are still flying, they haven't slept. Every time I ate a meal, I'd be like, well, the godwits still haven't eaten. And then like I actually got home before they did, so I flew back from New Zealand to Oakland, and like it was a 13-hour flight, and all I had done was sit down, and I got
Yeah.
off the plane and I was like, oh man, I am
So
so tired. Right? And they meanwhile were on their like 7th day of continuous flapping. And just I think that to me is just the perfect example where the personal, the lived experience, the book knowledge, like it just makes that whole experience so much more transcendental than either of those alone.
Right. No, and it's definitely, it does get into the realm of like, just I think I'm starting to understand the meaning of life here, kind of like by
Right,
watching
right.
these birds,
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, when I was actually sort of looking at the things you'd done, that I think they described you as being a science reporter at some point in time. And I'm thinking, well, all the stuff that I've seen you do is actually natural science. It's like your passion
Mhm.
seems to be truly biology more than any old
Totally.
science, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I thought, no, there's no such thing as natural science reporter. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like the
Yeah.
even in the concept of um to me, yes, science is broad and interesting in all realms, but natural science is something completely different than
Yeah.
chemistry, right?
Right.
Like
Mhm.
we all, ultimately it resonates in a way, uh, watching animals or even thinking about microbes and lifespans, migrations in a way that you know chemistry or physics just doesn't, in a sense,
Yeah.
to me. And
Yeah.
it's not to demean those, but I almost feel like those are things that we have to learn in order to understand the natural world. Like the
Yeah.
chemistry and physics informs what we really are trying to figure out is this whole like how does the world actually work? And in the end, we're talking about how does life actually work? As I feel. You know.
I agree. I mean, I know physicists and chemists who I think feel this way about their own field. They see like this like magic and elegance to it, and I think the
Hmm.
best ones are absolutely capable of conveying that in a way that like hits you viscerally in the same way that watching a migrating bar-tailed godwit
Right.
does for me. But it's harder, and it's certainly not where like it's not what sets me alight. Like I've sort of joked for the longest time that my beat is anything that is or was once alive.
Yeah.
Um so, and I added that last bit in because I sometimes write about paleontology too,
Right.
but yeah, the living world is what I care about, and I think that I'm at a stage of my career where I get to really just focus on that. Like I've written about lots of different things
Hmm.
throughout my life, but this is what really gets me going. And I think it was interesting actually. Like so the first book I wrote, and I Contain Multitudes, really was I had this idea of maybe doing a book about the microbiome, and I couldn't really work out how to make it work because there were many ways of doing it that I felt were just going to like overhype what was a fairly young nascent science. And it was
Hmm.
only when I worked out, oh, I could write what's basically a natural history book about
Hmm.
the microbiome. Like that it's not just about human health, but it's really primarily about the way the microbial and animal kingdoms, those worlds interact with each other. So it would be as much about weird insects and bobtail squid and the whole animal kingdom through a microbial lens, as it was about like medical applications.
Mhm.
And the book did well. It was a New York Times bestseller. It got onto the bestseller list at like position 20 for
Nice.
1 week, which is like the minimum amount of effort you
Yeah.
can, right? And but the book also had this, human health side to it. And when I wrote An Immense World, which is very explicitly and clearly a book about animals for their own sake, I really thought this will not sell. Like this, this will find a smaller audience because fewer people will be interested in it if it doesn't like directly materially touch on their lives. And I really could not have been more wrong about that. And
Yeah.
it's sort of funny why I thought that, because that's not how I think. But I think, it's very easy to internalize this idea that just caring about nature for its own sake is somehow like
Right. Yeah.
like not that it's uncool, but that like it is not mainstream, that it's like not a popular view, that a lot of people actually don't care. And I think the success of An Immense World has really taught me I've massively underestimated like the constituency who really cares about this and who shares like
Right.
my values. It's actually enormous, and I think a lot of people are deeply curious about life and about how all of this stuff works. And you just have to do like communicate it well, give them something to care about, like expose just how awesome in the traditional sense all of this is.
Well,
Yeah.
you didn't, so Molly and I talked about your book some time ago, like,
Mhm.
and because we'd both encountered it separately, and to me, it was like, okay, so I'm a pretty well, I have pretty good knowledge about natural history, but every page was like, whoa, like, no way,
Yeah.
holy crap.
Thank you.
And like things that I had
Truly.
no idea existed, and that were way beyond, like, they were almost in the realm of like, I'm reading some kind of crazy science fiction that's been created but obviously
Yeah,
it's not.
right.
It's just these animals are doing amazing things. And I thought, well, I did not know you at the time at all. I thought this man is incredibly creative. Like he has a
Thank
way of
you.
seeing stuff that is amazing and talking about it in a way that anybody could be interested in this. But also I was like amazingly well researched, so that stuff that is out there that the even people who sort of think of themselves as moderately well read about nature had no idea was going on. And so I think your book touched on a lot of different. It's superbly well done, but it's also
Thank
like
you.
so well researched. Like I know what
Yeah.
research is like. You are an amazing researcher, and
Thank you.
so I was just like thinking that, and I think that's what your thought was too, Molly, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned creativity for that too, because yeah, just to be able, I know nothing that exists like that book, and I mean for all that's worth, I can't even
Oh, it's worth
imagine
so
the
much. Thank
starting
you.
point. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I had written about some of the stuff beforehand. So, I in bits and pieces, like short news pieces over the years. And when I came up with the idea of writing An Immense World, I kind of had a sense of who the protagonists would be. And that's both species and scientists. Like I knew there would be a mantis shrimp in there, or like I knew there would be rattlesnakes in there, or bats. But yeah, it took probably a full year to really find out everything I needed to find out about the book. Like there's 1,000 references in the bibliography, and I think a lot of the joy of it was trying to find out stuff that wasn't in like the published literature. The whole point of the book is to get people to think about what the experiences of other creatures are. And some you don't really get, like scientists don't really put a lot of that more imaginative stuff in their papers, which are very much just descriptions of facts and methodology and all of that. But like, I guarantee you, if you ask someone who has spent their whole life like studying electric fish, hey, how does an electric fish sense the world? They've absolutely thought about it and have answers, to share, even if they don't know that those answers are right. And so there was just this glorious process of finding all these very curious, very thoughtful people, and just picking their brains about the things that they don't, they don't get to share with their colleagues. I really wanted to make sure that I'm glad that your description of your experience reading the book is what it is, because that was the intent, right? Like, I really wanted every page to blow your mind in some way.
Right. Yeah, it did.
Books are actually kind of expensive, and I don't want to waste anyone's time, and I really want to I think the strength. So before I wrote An Immense World, there were lots of books that were about a particular sense. So you could find like a great book about echolocation or about magnetic sensors, or you could find books about like the sensory world of particular animals, like elephants or whales or even birds. There's a great book called Bird Sense by Tim Burkhead. But there wasn't anything that put it all together. And I think it's that weaving of all these different species and these different kinds of sensing in the same package that I think makes the whole much greater than the sum of its parts. And nothing like that existed at the time, which kind of shocked me, because this is a field of research and of scholarship and of human thought that has existed for a long time. And even the people within it, were sort of very stuck in their own buckets, right? Like a lot of scientists who study vision don't know that much about touch or about hearing, and vice versa. So, I was really hoping that the book would be interesting to the scientific community, including people who actually work in that field. I was really hoping that it would strike a chord with people who knew nothing about science at all. And I think it very much has done that. I've had the most wonderful feedback from like the bits that are most meaningful to me, the ones that really, really resonate, are from people who say, like, I don't read science books. I am not like,
right. Yeah.
I didn't do biology, like even at high school, and like I got this. Like I see the world in a different way now. I'm like I pause before like clearing a spider's web away from the corner of my room, or I walk my dog in a different way, and that's all I want. And I'm proud and delighted that the book could have that impact on people.
I would say that, I think my guess is that if you had the one thing that you had to pull out that people changed their behavior, was how they walked their dog. from your book. And I've actually seen it separately in somewhere else, like, I just heard about this book, and then it was from the dog perspective, like some dog, kind of, I don't know, Facebook group or something. So the sensory walk for dogs, and then it's not all about just getting them tired, walking around, doing, but it's all about smelling and sniffing and I just want to say that we got to see the famous Typo, your dog, just before
we did.
We started, it's so funny because I think both Molly and I commented, like, it's like, did you see his dog is actually called Typo? That's so funny. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a little sweetheart. He's actually passed out under my desk right now. I'm not gonna pick him up.
No.
Because he will be very mad. But this is him. Actually,
there he is.
It's adorable.
That's great.
I think when we talked about that in the episode, I don't know if I edited myself out because I remember I knew it was like a punctuation mark that was his name. And I was like, it's not colon, it's not semicolon, it's something along these lines. And I know it's really cool and I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, it's a good name for a writer's dog. You know, it's like people say that the ideal dog names are like 2-syllable, like hard consonants. So it's great. He's also he's typography when he's bad, you know, at the dog park when you're shouting, "Typography! Get over here right now."
Yeah.
Oh, I bet everybody knows you there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, we were discussing kind of before we started that when you wrote that book, you had not yet become a full-fledged birder, even though you've been looking at nature throughout your life, right? So you're in a sense, you were always a birder, but this got more formal at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
And what do you feel like all in your writing and figuring out these animal senses and some of the people you've met, how has it influenced your birding, if anything at all? Like when you're watching, you know, you already told us a little bit about the migration of the godwits, which it's also going to come up in your next book, maybe. Yeah. What's your thought on you know?
I think
I'd love to build on that a little bit too. Sorry to jump in, but I've been thinking about this as we've been talking because I was thinking about how first I was a birder and then I read Enneman's World and then I read I Can Take Multitudes. I moved in like the reverse order of what you did. And both of those books have had
bit back in time.
Distinct. Yeah, both have changed the way that I look at the world. So thinking about you coming in that opposite direction, I think like, of course you became a birder. Your whole stance is expanding perception, right? And then surely noticing birds just comes right after that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think that would I have become a birder if I hadn't written An Immense World? I don't know, actually. So Molly knows this because I talked about this in my talk at this Texas event. Like, I've been interested in nature my whole life. I only became a birder about 3 years ago. Why did it take so long? You know, I've traveled a lot. When I've traveled, I've looked at wildlife around me. Often those were birds. I took photos, looked at field guides, worked out what I saw, and kept lists of what I saw. So, like, the phenotype is all there, except I never once thought I could just do that every day, like at home.
All the time.
This could all the time, right? Like, it was a vacation thing. And, I think we do internalize this idea of nature being very separate from us, and like our daily lives. Like it's a like kind of wilderness feels like this remote, grand thing that we occasionally dip into. And when I was writing An Immense World, I made the argument in the book and in many talks about the book that no, like wilderness is around us all the time, right? It's in our doorstep, in our gardens. Like, all you have to do to experience the sense of disorientation and awe that wilderness can offer is to think about how other animals experience the world around you. Like what my dog is smelling when we go on walks, what the birds I can see in my garden are hearing, or the extra colors they're seeing. I can go on these incredible journeys without ever having to leave my desk or my yard. And I kept on saying in countless interviews and in the writing of the book, like, nature is all around us. It's there for us to savor, to experience, and to protect. And I just kind of started feeling, it feels a bit rich to be saying this and not actually doing it. So when I moved from DC, where I used to live, to California, one of my goals was to get more in touch with the natural world around me, like to actually experience it more. And I think in my head that took the form of getting some binoculars and maybe downloading Merlin and just sort of paying a little bit more attention. I don't think I ever imagined that birding would become this all-consuming, massively rewarding part of my life in the way that it has. But yeah, I think that the seeds of that journey were planted in the writing of An Immense World. Knowing everything I know through the writing of that book, I think has made that journey richer too. It doesn't change. I'm not getting like tactical information from thinking about the sensitive animals that helps me like find this, this bird here. But I think I write in the book about how singing birds are hearing little changes in the pitch and volume of their songs that our ears are too slow to detect, and that they hear meaning in that. So, I think about that a lot when I'm hearing birdsong, when I'm looking at a spectrogram, and when I'm one of the first birds that I heard when I moved to the Bay Area was a Pacific wren, and just it's impossible to hear that song or to look at the spectrogram without just marveling at how much is going on. And like I can identify with the bird, but that's about it. Like I don't know which parts of this song are conveying meaning, what kinds of meaning. I know that the bird, I know that the birds around me are seeing maybe 100 times more colors than what I'm seeing, not just like ultraviolet, but ultraviolet in combination with all the colors that I can see. So all of these like kind of cocktail colors that we don't even have names for. And I think all of that, none of that massively helps the birding, but it does enrich it. And I think one particular thing it does is it gets you comfortable with not knowing stuff.
Right.
I know that there's so much about the experiences of birds, their biology, that I will never know. Like a lot of An Immense World is trying to simultaneously get people to think about the sensory worlds of other animals while also getting them comfortable with the knowledge that they will never fully know what it is like to be a bat or a bird or anything. And I think being able to sit with the discomfort of uncertainty and actually to embrace it as a good thing and a joyous thing is super useful for a journalist, for a birder, for a scientist. Like all of these professions and hobbies, like you do need to be at peace with not knowing stuff, or actually to find like glory and joy from it. And I think that that writing the book was part of that too.
That's awesome. It as you were talking, I was thinking like one of the things that happened on this last tour I was in Thailand that I thought was really sort of I thought about your book and kind of the concepts in it was that well, we saw hoopoes, and hoopoes are these amazing black and white crazy things with crests and do this, they're always fun to see. They fly really slowly, and their wings are black and white. And so I think somebody said it's crazy that the hawks don't just eat all the hoopoes. And then Lily Douglas, who's a biologist and a great birder from Sacramento area, actually, she said, well, they apparently smell really bad if you find a nest. The nest really smells bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's weird. Like they smell bad. Like not many birds have a smell component that we kind of know about that's sort of vividly obvious to a lot of people. And then I posted a picture of this hoopoe on Facebook, and then somebody said, apparently they taste bad. They could be poisonous. And I'm like, hold on a second. That actually kind of makes complete sense. And I thought, do people know this, or and I tried to look it up, and apparently I'm not sure that anybody's kind of looked into it, but it makes complete sense that this bad smelling thing that's black and white, like almost like an obvious butterfly that is basically saying, "Don't eat me." Probably because it either tastes bad or it's something going on, and that's partially kind of correlated with the smell. I don't know, but I was like thinking,
Okay,
like,
so
have we not noticed something major here that somehow others know about? I'm the last one at the party, or
right. Like, no, so far, no ornithologist has been brave enough to answer the question:
taste it.
do hoopos taste bad? But
Yeah.
you, Alvaro, I think, are exactly the hero we need to embark on this major research project. Well, so this is funny because hoopos are actually in my first book about the microbiome, because they oh god, so they have bacteria in the preen glands that make antibacterial compounds. So they
okay.
smear I think their eggs or themselves with this paste that has bacterially produced antibacterials in it.
Oh wow.
And I'm so curious now, like, is that the same stuff that makes them smell bad / taste bad? Probably, right? Like, it's
right. And I think we're also assuming that all these parts are known, but it
right.
The wonderful kind of nature of what this possibility was, I'm like thinking, oh, if this is true, Ed could write about it in the next version of the because I was thinking about the senses and the whole thing, because you have this visual element, you have the smell, you have, and who knows, right? But
and or I could just write it and make it true.
That's right.
That's how it works, right? Just like cite it as Jaramillo a personal communication.
Right. Or dumbass 2026.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dumbass N. But, the book does open your mind to all of the things that you may not be seeing, because we have, so we were talking about the buff-breasted sandpipers and, the little marbled pattern, but they might be seeing something completely different. We just see the marble pattern. They could be seeing, mega pink cocktail colors with UV light.
Right.
And,
Right. Like, like bird white is not human white. Right. So white is just whatever, like, to us, the perception of white is something that stimulates like all of our cone cells, and birds have an extra one. So, like, some of the things that we think of as white, like I've got this like piece of cardboard over here. Like, a lot of the stuff that we have that's white actually is very UV reflective, so it's 100% not white to a bird. So, like, is a buff-breasted sandpiper armpit actually like super colorful?
Right.
I have absolutely no idea.
Right.
But
I would never have thought about it before your book. Like, I would have just assumed that what I'm seeing is what the bird sees. Now I assume I'm not seeing what the bird sees, which is like a really amazing, kind of frustrating yet liberating way to see it. Because I don't know how you would test these things, now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I do. Thank you for that, having opened my mind to, how the birds might see it, and it's cool. It's just it's neat.
I think about this a lot when in the context of just migration and habitat preferences. So, why one thing I find myself thinking a lot is, why is this bird here and not like over there? Why, like, we have several return birds that keep on returning every year to the exact same spot, and it's like, well, 100 yards that way, there's what looks to me to be equally good habitat that is completely devoid of birds, and yet over here, there are these returning vagrants that always come back. So why here and why not there? And I think about the sensory stuff in that context too. Like, what is it that I do not perceive about this site that makes it like super attractive?
Right. Yeah, no, I read about some years ago about raptors, like let's say a red-tailed hawk can actually see the urine trails in the grass, because they're seeing reflections of UV or what have you, and you're like, oh well, no wonder they pick certain fields, over others, and
Okay,
you
so
wonder if
that
warblers do
turns out
something
to
different.
So that turns out to be a myth.
Oh, really?
This is a really fun one, yeah. Because I also knew that, or thought I knew that. I remember learning about it from a documentary when I was a kid, and I just always held it in mind. And when I was researching An Immense World, I learned that actually turns out not to be true. So there's a lot of the stuff about raptors. So the idea is raptors are looking at UV reflecting off the urine trails of voles and other rodents. And it turns out that they can't do that. Like if you look at the physiology of the eyes, they can't do that. And also rodent urine doesn't massively reflect that much UV. And there was a paper by this Swedish group who are like world leaders in animal vision that disproved this idea, but it's so hard to like the debunking study never goes as
Right.
far as the original.
Yeah.
So I feel like loads of people still hold on. I actually had this conversation with Ted Floyd recently, because he I heard him say a very similar thing, and it's there in a field guide, and I think it's a very, very commonly held thing. But this is one of the other themes in An Immense World. I think it's how difficult it is to actually study all of this,
Right.
and how we sort of have this caricature of science as this steady drumbeat of new facts and discoveries. And actually, it's this very meandering, almost drunken stumble towards like maybe not so much truth as just slightly reduced uncertainty.
Yeah.
Which sort of gets us back to this question of being comfortable with not knowing stuff. I think like the partner to that is getting comfortable with the idea that you're probably wrong about a lot of things that you previously believed, which I think is a very handy skill for a birder to have.
Yeah,
because
right.
I certainly am wrong about a lot of things on the regular.
Yeah, no, that is true. Like some people have always asked me why I like gulls, and because why would you like them if you can't tell a lot of them apart? And I said, exactly, you can't tell a lot of them apart. And that, if when you sort of, then you're kind of go through that drunken meander of sorting out bits and pieces that may be important or not important or whatever, it's fun. And you don't know if you're getting closer to anything, but if it's a scarlet tanager and a summer tanager male, it's just done. You can identify them easily. These aren't. So that's what I think sometimes can be attractive is that uncertainty, and you have to be comfortable and not knowing and sort of saying, well, we think it's a hybrid and we think it's this kind of hybrid. Well, how do you know? You don't. You're just guessing.
Right. Yeah.
It's an educated guess.
Yeah. So you can tell how hard I've fallen into birding because I'm on like year 3 and I started gulling hard. And Alvaro knows this because so this winter I was trying to find a Vega gull, and I kept on texting Al being like, is this one? What about this one? What about this one? But that was a fun quest, but I think I wouldn't have kept on trying to do it if I didn't actually just enjoy the process of it. And I do enjoy the process of it. Like just looking at like this lagoon full of 2,000 gulls and slowly working your way through going, well, what's that? What's that?
Right.
What's that? What's that?
And what is truly weird and what is sort of normal weird, like it's just
yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Notably weird.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's well, if you're going into the gulls, I'm so sorry. Birding has gotten you. Like, it's really, I mean, it's time to, go to the
Point of no
Birding's
return.
Anonymous or something.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, so I'm hopefully going to join Al in Japan next year, but I was looking at the itinerary, Al, and just like cracking up because it's like, okay, day 1 we arrive in Japan. Day 2, looking at gulls all morning. We're going to port. We're just going to spend like 4 hours looking at gulls. If you're
Right.
new to birding, well, buckle up. We're going to break you. You won't before your first lunch. We'll do the hard bit first, and then you can look at your nice, pretty
then we can
passerines.
relax.
Yeah.
It's quite a filter for your signups there, Alvaro.
I know. I kind of downplayed a bit, it's like people want to see these gulls that they've heard, they've heard about them, but okay, we'll do one morning of the gulls and then we can move on. Sort of like
just to get it out of the guide system so he can focus on the rest of the trip. Otherwise it'll just be cranky.
Right. It's so funny. Well, I think on that note, we've taken a lot of your time, Ed, and it's been really fun to chat with you. And
we've barely worked through the sense of sight.
I know,
right?
There's so much to go.
Honestly, anytime, guys. I love this show. This has been such a wonderful companion to me across many, many long drives to get to some place I wanted to bird. And yeah, this is a total delight. I love the show.
And next time we can have you and George together. And each do your own versions.
Oh, so much echo.
If you allow him back, if you allow old George Armstead back.
Yeah, Molly and I will discuss it because
that's right. We'll stay on and talk about it after.
Do you want to mention anything about your upcoming book that you haven't talked about, or?
So the book is called Life Beyond Measure. It is, as I said, a book about scale. It's about the entire natural world. So there are animals in there, but also plants, bacteria, fungi, the whole works. It does have a lot of bird content for the listeners of this podcast. Hummingbirds appear in multiple places.
Nice.
There are, of course, bar-tailed godwits. There's a whole section about vagrants and what they're up to. And there's unfortunately a section on bird declines in the chapter about abundance and numbers. But it's, I think I am prouder of this book than I am of anything that I've written before. This is like me taking my biggest possible swing. It really is a love letter to the living world, and it's. I sort of think of it as the part 3 of a trilogy of work that began with the first 2 books. So it might feel like the topics are quite different, but all of these books are about how how nature is so much deeper and richer than we can perceive. The first book explored this whole world that we literally cannot see. The second world explored parts of the world that we don't perceive, whether by sight or by other senses. And Life Beyond Measure is similar to that in every possible direction. It's about how other organisms exist at sizes and timescales that are so alien to us, and it's in the same way that An Immense World did. It's about trying to get people to extend all of their curiosity and empathy towards organisms that live very different lives than how they live, and the same feelings of awe and wonder, that same feeling of suddenly turning into a menace at dinner parties. That is what I want the book to engender in people. It was a very ambitious book to write. I hope it delivers on the promise of it, because if you thought the last book was well researched, then oh my god, this one took A lot of work. I mean, both the previous books are about like a particular field. In Life Beyond Measure, like sometimes entire sections of a chapter could be an entire field in itself.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's come out. It's weird to me that it'll be another year before it actually exists in the world.
yeah.
But I will shout loud when it comes time to do things like pre-order. And maybe I can come back and chat more about different parts of it.
That'd be great.
Fantastic.
And we didn't, I'm sure we could talk to you forever, because there's just interesting, cool things that we're all kind of keen on that you've researched. So it's been fantastic. I really have to thank you not only for your time and being here. The fact that you're a fan of our show is really awesome. It's like it makes us feel like we're actually like, wow, if we could get Ed Yong to be like our show, that this is awesome. But we're such a fan of yours.
I'm a patron. I'm one of your subscribers, guys.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. It's fantastic. And hopefully we'll see you on a boat trip when I'm back in California this season somewhere.
Yeah, I would love that. I was hearing from one of my friends that like it's sort of shaping up to maybe be a really interesting year at sea.
It is. I think. I mean, I don't want to sort of talk before it happens, but I think it's going to be perhaps one of the warmest water seasons we'll ever have, which could be really interesting and weird. Not also scary, but from a perspective of the what's going on. But it's the El Nino hasn't really shaped up yet to sort of add to this marine heat wave that's going on, but once it does, it's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way. And interesting always brings rare birds,
Right. It's like having to hold at the same time in your head that feeling of, ooh, cool, and oh no.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
It's
what a place to see it.
It's right. It's sort of like when George just talked about hurricanes, it's like you don't want a hurricane to come along, but if it does, you're always wondering what birds are going to show up, right? It's like it's this tragedy that also has this flip side of like, oh, wow, birds.
Yeah.
And we don't want to demean the negative aspect of global climate change and so forth. But anyway, thank you so much, Ed, and thank you, Molly. It was good to see you again. And hopefully you have a good flight tomorrow in your next trip.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll catch you on the other side.
Bye, guys. Total pleasure.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.